folks, we're going to get started. This is Baltimore City Judiciary and Legislative Investigations Committee. We are here for City Council Resolution 18-0080R, Traffic Light Synchronization. I'm joined to my immediate left by Council President Bernard C. Jack Young. To his left, Councilman Robert Stokes from the 12th District, member of the committee. To his left, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark from the 14th District, Vice Chair of the committee. To her left, Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District. To his left, Councilman Ed Reisinger from the 10th District, member of the committee. To his left, Councilman Brandon Scott from the 2nd District, member of the committee. And to my right, Councilman Leon Pinkett, 7th District, member of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And to his right, Councilman John Bullock from the 9th District, member of the committee. Representing Mayor Pugh is Karan Banks. We also have representing Council President Young, Kara Kuntz, Director of Legislative Services, and Rebecca Tabb, who is counsel to the City Council. We have staff to the committee. To my immediate right, Matt Peters. Couple quick ground rules before we begin. If you have a cell phone, please turn it to mute, off, silent, vibrate, something along those lines. Thank you, Mr. President. If you are testifying, please be... Thank you, Councilwoman. If you are testifying, please be sure to speak into the microphone. This hearing is being televised live on Comcast Channel 25, Charm TV, as well as streamed online live at charmtv.tv. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Council President Young for introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution is self-explanatory. When we got word the Department of Transportation were going to implement the block-the-box legislation, well, not legislation, but the block-the-box law into their everyday practice of enforcing traffic laws in Baltimore City, I was a little taken aback because I know that most of the lights are not synchronized. You know, if you look at all of the lights that are going like Guilford and all these, they can be red, and the lights here are green, which backs up a lot of traffic. And that light right there at Gay and Fayette, only 2 cars can get through there. And if it's a pedestrian that's walking across the street, then only 1 car, and you're stopped in the box. You know, so we have to make sure that these lights are synchronized properly. I know I have been talking about the lights at Gay and Baltimore, I know for about 5 or 6 years, okay, and nothing has happened. Now, my intent is to make sure that where you are going to do the enforcement is where the lights need to be synchronized right now. And as we go forward, you guys need to come back and let us know what the plan is for synchronization for the rest of the city. I know that our infrastructure is old. I understand that. I understand that when it rains and it goes down in the ground where our lights are, it affects that as well. But we're in the 21st century, and we should be moving towards making sure that our lights are synchronized correctly so that we can keep the flow of traffic moving. So with that, I just want to encourage you to make sure that when we start to block the box, that it's only in the areas where the lights have been synchronized, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. DOT has a presentation. How many slides is this? 17. Do you have hard copies of this?
We can provide that.
Do you have a hard copy in front of you?
For my handwriting.
No, we do not have any hard copies.
Can someone,
If you have a clean copy, you can give it to us, and we'll make copies. You have a clean copy?
we only have 1 copy? So, Caitlin or someone, Karan, can someone email Matt a copy of this?
You have his notes on there. Because if they can email this slide to us, we can print them out ourselves. Because but in the future, when you come before the committee, and I don't know if you've been before the committee before, it's always good to prepare handouts especially when you're having a presentation, because the council people like to have those kind of things in front of them. So in the future, when you come before the council, always have your presentation available for us.
My first time here, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so Karan is getting us copies. Is that what I understand? No, if you're, yeah, we'd like to have hard copies printed for the committee members.
Thanks, Karan.
Okay, Mohammed, if you could, you're going to be taking the lead for DOT presenting? Okay, if you could come up, state your name and your position, and introduce everyone from your team, and then I would ask that you keep your presentation of the slide deck under 10 minutes.
Yes, I'm going to
Thank
go
you
through
very
them
much.
pretty relatively quickly.
And I'm going to have a hard stop on the 10 minutes.
Okay.
And my understanding is the director had another commitment this evening, and she's already spoken with Council President Young. So the understanding was that you would be taking the lead for DOT tonight, correct?
Yeah, that is correct, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Okay.
You're good.
All right. Okay, all right. Well, again, thank you very much for allowing me to do a quick presentation on traffic signal system and Don't Block the Box. What I'd like to start out with is the slides are going to provide a current status of our signal system. We'll continue to improve.
Can you back up because
Sure.
you're supposed to state your name so the council people don't know you.
Okay, sure,
know
sure.
who you
I'm
are.
sorry. Okay. My name is Mohammed Khalid. I'm the Deputy Director, Chief Engineer for DOT. Okay. Again, just to say that we are starting the slides are going to talk about traffic signal system and Don't Block the Box. Going to give you a quick overview of our signal system and how we provide, what is our current status of the system, and how we continue to improve this system, and give you some sense of confidence that Don't Block the Box enforcement will be optimized before the enforcement take place. The slides will include, we're going to kind of go through this thing in an order that can give you a comprehensive understanding of our signal elements, just a little bit of education of our signal system, what is the current status of it, how the funding that we have for our signal system and where we're allocating that fund. And then we're going to talk about what our needs are, what is the funding needs we need, and also give you a little bit of understanding of what we have been able to accomplish in our signal systems in the last several years. And I'm going to dive a little bit into the Don't Block the Box and our signal optimization citywide. So in a very broader sense, a signal system includes four elements. Signal infrastructure itself is the biggest piece of the signal system, and then communication, traffic management center, and ITS, Intelligent Transportation System. And I'm going to go over those things very quickly to show what those includes. So again, as I mentioned, the signals are the biggest piece of our infrastructure itself. We have about 1,400 signalized intersections in the city. 3 corridors has TSP or Transit Signal Priority Systems, and 2 corridors have adaptive signal systems. I will kind of give you what those TSP and adaptive signal systems are. Okay. The TSP is a Transit Signal Priority in collaboration with Maryland Transportation Authority, or MTA. We have these corridors with the TSP system, which prioritizes buses or light rails at those signals, so it reduces travel time for the transit systems. And those are York Roads, Lock Haven, Howard, and bus and light rail retrofit and with the TSP systems. I talked about the adaptive signal technology. We have installed them on Russell Street, and we are embarking on Northern Parkway right now. What it does is automatically, in a real time, looks at the traffic volume, traffic data, and automatically adjusts the signal timing for the need of that particular time. So on Russell Street, it is working very well. and Northern Parkway will be installed in the next several months. Communication is we have a traffic management center, but our signals, many of our signals communicates directly to the TMC. It enables us to remotely do timing changes from the TMC. It also, if we see there's a signal which is malfunctioning or not working properly, we can make corrections from the TMC. If not, we become aware of it immediately, and we can send our technician to the field to fix the signal. And we can also ensure that the synchronization or the optimization of the signals are taking place through that communication center. Finally, as I mentioned, the Traffic Management Center, we have a state-of-the-art TMC system put in 2008. We have 24-hour monitoring of the system with, it has, of course, the monitors and many other computer systems and technologies in place where we can do real-time monitoring of the system and make corrections as needed or changes. The ITS system, which is really a supplement to the signal system, these are technologies that has been placed in several years now that allows us to see what the traffic volume is, how the traffic counts are, and we can make a real-time decision how we're going to disseminate that information to the public, to the traveling public. So that gives a more of an educated decisions the traveling public could make of which routes to take, which one not to take, where the traffic volume is, and so forth. Again, to summarize the four things that is part of our traffic signal systems, again, as I mentioned, we have about 1,400 signalized intersections, 3 corridors of TSP, and 2 corridors of adaptive signal system. We are currently have 400 signals, approximately 400 signals are communicating to the TMC or the Traffic Management Center. Many of those are really concentrated in the downtown corridor. And as I mentioned, we have the TMC, which has 18 monitoring monitors and many other advanced equipments that monitor these systems. And finally, the ITS includes CCTV cameras, DMS, counting stations, and detection systems, over 500 intersections. And right now, we have funding of about $22 million over multiple years of CIP that we are implementing these or working on these. The actual physical reconstruction of signals itself, which are many of them has lived its life and needs total replacement. And those reconstruction, we have over $7 million we'll be spending on signal reconstruction. And many of the signals, the wiring are deteriorated to a point that the new wiring is required, and we are spending about $500,000 on that. And the signal optimization, we are going to be embarking on a citywide signal optimization project for about $5 million. And with the communication network that I talked about, we need to upgrade that. We will be doing that for about $4.5 million. And ATMS and TMC upgrades will be about $4.5 million. And the intelligent transportation system, we have about $1 million of investments that's going to be happening on upgrading our ITS system. Our needs. We really need about $90 million plus to really bring it up to 21st century system.
How much was that? 90?
$90 million.
Wasn't the request to the state for 30?
No, I'll go through that. So we have, if we want to bring that system up to a full standard, it will need about $90 million.
Right, but didn't the mayor just request $30 million from the state for improvements and enhancements to the signal system?
You know, I don't know what
Ron?
she exactly asked.
Well, didn't the mayor send a letter to the governor, to the General Assembly recently, Can you pull that letter up in which she requested $30 million?
Yes, I will double check that for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the funding need is that in order to bring all our signals to the modern signals, we need to invest about $7 million a year for next 6 years. Communication upgrades about $4.5 million over a 6-year period, and ATM is about $4.5 million. The traffic command center and ITS, we estimate about $1 million investment over a 6-year period.
But doesn't that figure come to 102 million? You said 90 million.
So I was just doing a rough math. It's about 102 million, yes.
So it's, I don't mean to
So
split
these
hair.
are ballpark numbers.
Right, I don't mean to split hair, but 90 versus 102 million is a very significant difference. That's $12 million.
So,
That's a
yes,
delta of
okay.
like 14%.
So 17 million over 6 years, 17 times 6 is
102.
102.
I know,
Okay.
I just, again, I don't mean to split hairs. You said 90.
Okay.
So it's 102?
I'm state corrected. That's 102. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me 1 minute. Well, how much is the total budget for transportation?
It's
Anybody
nowhere
know?
near there, yes.
Huh?
The total budget, I think our HUR, our federal fund is about 30 million a year. HUR fund has been about 7 to 10 million a year, the capital side.
Okay, I was just wondering what the total budget, because if y'all ask for 90 million, Rex and Parks don't only get that to run their whole agency. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's take a step back. So you're asking for 17 million over 6 years, which comes to a total of 102 million to make all of the improvements that you've outlined there. If you had the money up front, is there a reason those improvements couldn't all be made at once in 1 year?
These takes time. We have to do the design and actual construction, but we can initiate it immediately, yes.
Right. Okay. And how much is the annual capital budget for DOT? You said, how much did you say for highway user revenues?
Highway user revenue is averaging around 7 to 10 million, I think.
7 to 10 million. And what
Yes.
was the other revenue source?
Our federal fund is about 30 million, and there's other source of funding. So
So what's that 37 to 40? Because that's the sum. What is that used for currently?
part of it is on the signal system, which is we're averaging about 4.5, 5 million a year.
So we're currently spending 4.5 to 5 million of that 37 to 40 million per year on something that requires approximately 17 million a year.
That is correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so with that $4.5, $5 million a year, these are some of the accomplishments in the last recent year. I don't want to go through all that, but we have optimized about 1,000 traffic signals and all the other things that's listed here. But you know, we are keeping the system going with the funding level we have. Okay, now I'm going to dive a little bit into the don't block the box. As you all know, that blocking a signal as intersection really has a impact, free flow of cross traffic, force pedestrians to enter into the intersection. And really this initiative is meant to ensure safety of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And of course, the congestion that it does, not only at that intersection, but it was a network level congestion creates if a car is sitting in the intersection. So these are 13 locations that has been identified. You discussing this with internal and external stakeholders as the area that we are going to start our enforcement. And these locations, we are doing field evaluation. We have already started that. And we are going to optimize these within 30 days. These intersections will be optimized. And we will not only look at that intersection, but the impact within multiple intersection or the corridor level to optimize these intersections. Okay. And I want to share a little bit more on the signal optimization. So we're going to start with this 13, and we're going to expand this into downtown. within the next several weeks and months, and that's which will become a bigger areas of enforcement area as we optimize those intersections. And as we do that, we are also embarking on a citywide synchronization optimization project, which will cost about $5 million, and we'll start implementing that in the next several years. That will be a citywide embarkment that we are initiating. So with that, thank you.
So real quick, I've got the letter from the mayor here. It appears that the request is for $50 million to design and upgrade the traffic signal and ITS communication system, including signal rewiring and complete connectivity to the Transportation Management Center is needed. This is dated March 29th, 2018. So the letter says 50. You originally said 90, but clarified 102 million. What is the correct figure that is required to make this work?
So I think we looked at those numbers that we really need, and we said which are the priorities, and we developed that 50 million as the key priority ones. So that the 102 million would give us a fully robust system, such as ITS is really something to supplement. We said that that can wait. So there are certain signals. Reconstruction could wait a few more years. So we kind of took a number that was much less than what our full need would be if an optimum condition, and that's where the 50 came from. It was.
So 50 is to do half the job?
I'm sorry?
50 million in the letter is to do half of the job?
We'll do the job?
No. The mayor requested $50 million from the state.
Okay.
I'm asking you, is that request to do half of this job? Because you're telling me you need $102 million. I'm not understanding why we didn't ask for $102 million.
Okay, I don't have a firm answer that why we could have asked for 102.
We need to get
asked
an
for 50.
We need to get an answer to understand what it is that you're asking for, because we really don't know. I don't even think we know what it is that you're trying to do, because you're telling me that the $50 million does something, but not everything that's listed in the presentation. That's $102 million. I don't understand how we have 100% delta in what's being asked for versus what the agency is telling us they need.
So as I mentioned, I think the 102 is a 100% 21st century system in place versus what are the critical needs that's how I believe the 50 was estimated. That if we get 50, we can bring this thing to much better condition than it is, but not have that whole robust system that we talked about. But I need to get that clarified for you.
Thank you. Council President?
Okay, on that slide 8, where we have the state of the art, was it 8? The Operations Center?
Yes, sir.
The picture where it had the Operations Center. Yeah, there. Okay. When they manage that Operations Center, can they see actually all of the traffic that's backed up at Lombard Street, at Fayette Street, at Saratoga Street, at, is that Preston? No, not Preston. Yeah, at Pratt Street. Can they actually see that?
Can they?
Because if they can see it, look like they would be proactive and start sending out some of the steels to move that traffic along. Can they actually see all of that? Or what is it that they see? You got to come to the mic.
Can you please state your name and your position?
Good evening, Honorable Council Chair and Council members. My name is Raj Sharma. I'm Engineer Supervisor for Traffic Signals and ITS System. I think it's-
Talking to the mic, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Raj Sharma. I'm Engineer Supervisor for Traffic Signals and ITS Systems. As far as the cameras, the locations are considered, I don't have the locations handy. We have cameras at multiple locations. Yes, we can see the multiple intersections and corridors where the cameras are. I'll be glad to forward the list of the cameras that we could see the locations.
But the question is, if they can see the location and they see where there's a backup, why don't they just send the steels out there to direct the traffic so we can keep the flow moving?
Yes, we can see the camera where the backup happens. We could see the streets and the corridors where the backup happens. And depending on the needs, either STOs are dispatched or the timing technicians are dispatched to modify the timing to accommodate the smooth, better flow of the traffic to flush the traffic.
Okay, because, you know, this has been going on for a while. You know, I noticed it about 4 years ago, and they said it was because of all of the graduations that was taking place downtown. There's no graduations going on that I know of in the last 2 months where the traffic is just backed up. One day I sat in traffic right here going out City Hall for about 15 minutes. Then when I got to the light, it was another 10 minutes because, you know, the traffic that's going straight up Gay is a long period, and the traffic that's coming up Fayette Street is another long period. And that light there is just about 14 to 15 seconds. It's totally ridiculous. But if you guys could see this, I think y'all should be dispatching those steels a lot quicker to keep the traffic going. I mean, it has to happen. And then you refer to that y'all want to do the synchronization. Y'all want to put this program in place in 30 days. So in 30 days, you're going to have all of those areas that you're going to do the enforcement synchronized.
That's correct.
Okay, as long as you do that.
Yes.
Because what we don't want to do as a council is get all these calls from our constituents who are caught out there in these places and the lights haven't been synchronized.
We understand. We already started the process and we'll be done before 30 days is
Okay.
over.
What we want you to do is, once you start this, when you start building out, we want you guys to let the council know. Because one thing that really, really made the council have some feelings about it, I don't want to say how I felt, was that you all did this without even talking to us, you know, and it hit the newspaper. I started getting phone calls. When y'all going to implement something, at least let the council know so that we can talk intelligently to our constituents of what's going on and why it's going on. I always supported, you know, legislation for block the box, you know, and we were prepared to put legislation in. I was. And I think I talked to Frank Murphy, and he told me y'all had something planned. But after that, you know, we didn't hear anything until there was a news conference. And that's not the way for the council to hear things, okay? I don't have no more questions other than I want to make sure that those lights are synchronized before we implement any enforcement on blocking the box.
What is the date that you expect synchronization to be completed on these 15 or 13 intersections? And I'm assuming the surrounding intersections?
Yeah, I mean, those are the enforcement areas, but we will look at least multiple intersections beyond that corridor to synchronize them.
What is the date that you
Date, I don't have a firm date, but 30 days, say, from next Monday. I will
30
do it.
days from next Monday? So that's the 14th, so let's say June 14th?
That sounds good.
Okay, and then you're committing that you are not going to do block the box enforcement until after June the 14th?
We plan to do warnings once it is synchronized at that particular intersection
So,
within this 30-day period.
so synchronization will be complete by June 14th. Is it correct that enforcement will not start until synchronization is complete?
For that particular intersection.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
So,
So all of them are not going to be done at one day.
I understand,
So, yeah.
all 13 will be completed within 30 days.
Yeah.
Once all 13 are completed, please, no, I think you know what I'm trying to ask.
So my name is Ebony Wimbush. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Department of Transportation. Director Pouchot is committed to optimizing the corridors that we outlined. It's not going to be a surprise. We're going to advertise and notify the public of those enforcement areas. And we are committed to just do warnings until those intersections are completed. So yes is the answer to your question. We will not do enforcement, but we will do warnings so that people are beginning to modify their own behavior.
So we're doing, so just to summarize, make sure I understand it correctly, we're doing warnings now, or starting very soon. We'll have synchronization complete within 30 days. At a date after synchronization is complete, then enforcement will begin.
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilman Scott. Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I go back to the basics on this?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khalid. What is synchronization to you and to DOT? In other words, I'm presuming it's a certain pace of traffic flow that allows a maximum of traffic to flow at a reasonable speed, whatever that is for that area, and gets that through an intersection, etc. In other words, that I was once in a meeting about that. I know Mr. Murphy was there because it was all about the Charles Village and the Remington, and everybody was working on trying to figure out what to do with 28th and 29th Streets. And that they began by talking about that you have to establish a flow so that people will not have to race to the light, the next light, to just get through it, but has a sense of there's a way through this if I just keep pace with the traffic. Tell me, is that what you mean by synchronization, or we all mean by that?
Essentially, that is what synchronization is. I like to use the word more in a urban downtown environment. Would be more like an optimization. We really can't synchronize everything, that everything will move perfectly and harmonize them. But what would happen is that we're going to count the traffic volume through traffic, left turn, right turn, all directions, and peak hour volumes, non-peak hour volumes,
Yes.
and we'll simulate that on a computer system to see what would optimize that intersection.
I see.
And not only that intersection, it's really the corridor. Not just that intersection, but the entire
The whole corridor.
that the traffic will flow
Guilford
in an
Avenue on a-
optimized manner so that maximize the number of the flow is going to be. Now, on say on a corridor like Northern Parkway or something, or Northern Avenue, I'm sorry, that
No, you're right.
is it? Am I right?
It's
Okay,
Parkway.
sorry. Okay.
The far north.
Yeah, so where you have signals, but it's a long corridor,
Yeah.
we might be able to synchronize that once you get a green, you can continue if you are going at a
Keep
speed
going.
limit. At the speed limit, you should be able to do that. But in downtown
yeah.
grid, it's much more difficult to do that, but our objective is to maximize the traffic flow at each cycle of
The
signal.
cycles.
Right.
So when you say that you're going to complete some limits of synchronization by mid-June, I think that's what was being discussed, that you're talking about major corridors downtown, or what are we
Yeah,
talking about? I couldn't quite, I'm sorry, follow the roads in
I think there was
question.
13 locations we have identified.
And they're
Those
downtown?
that is what we are focusing on.
Okay.
Those intersections, and again, it's not just that intersection. We're going to
The whole length.
whole length of both sides to optimize that so that to minimize the potential of having a force drivers to block the box.
Okay, so then secondly, how do you adjust traffic signals in Baltimore City? I was under the I was once told that they have to all be done individually with cranes and all, but maybe somebody was just trying to drive me crazy, thinking about what that would entail. How do we have central controls so that when you're synchronizing, you don't have to send somebody out with a truck?
Right. So many of our signals are communicating with our traffic management command center.
Okay.
And they can do it from the command center, but many of our signals are not communicating. So those have to be done out from the field.
So it's not just that you can't change those outliers. You don't even know what they're saying, right? In other words, there's no communication back and forth between the
Not on a daily basis. So it has been synchronized or optimized when that timing was done.
Right.
But then we need to go back to that intersection and control box and readjust the timing.
because you have no remote control of it.
Those we are not communicating, those are not connected to our TMC are
and
not
what's the
communicating.
in the system, do you know what the percentage of traffic signals is that you got to send a truck to fix
So
it,
about
to
400
change
or
it?
1,400 is communicating right now.
1,400 are in touch, like you can manage them
So
and
four,
you can.
we have total of 1,400 signalized intersection. Approximately 400 of them are connected to our command center
Okay, so-
remotely.
So about 400 out of 1,400 are in touch, you can control them, you can see it, you can adjust.
That is correct.
And 1,000 of them,
Are not. And
you need to send the truck.
we need to send, we have to do that
Okay.
by going to
So,
the
and
site. That's
in-
correct.
I lost track of the capital improvements you were talking about, but in the capital improvements that you're rolling out, do you have improvements to bring those 1,000 signals into line so
Yes.
you're not having to send a truck every time?
Right. So our goal is to have all the signals communicating with our traffic management center, our
By-
command center.
Forever, I mean,
Yeah, so that's why we have put in, let's see, about, what is it? We have currently, here you go, about $4.5 million for communication.
for that, to do that.
To do that, to increase that 400 to a higher number. I don't have that exact number that we'll be able to achieve with $4.5
But
million.
eventually you'll have them
The
all,
goal is
right?
to connect every one of those 1,400
And so
signalized intersections.
my last question right now is the following. What is, whose law, all right, let me say, am I correct that the state of Maryland does not have a block the box law, but we do in the city? And that's what was announced.
Okay, this one.
And you're not going to get, and the president has helped us stop enforcement until this time where the 14th of June, when things are in sync enough. Is that correct? Or I don't know.
Yes, that is
So
correct.
no tickets till the
There's a 30-day
synchronization.
warning, at least 30 days warning, and then we are going to.
Mohammed, can we, Caitlin? Go ahead.
So the utilization that we're looking to use right now is a state law, which provides for $90 fees and 1 point, and that's under right. Well, it's going to be carried out by the traffic enforcement regardless, but what that law states is that you cannot go through the intersection because of a traffic control device, which the sign on the above the intersections. So that's what we would be using for enforcement. There is a city code that is in place, but that's a $250 fine. So there are two separate
For
laws.
blocking the box,
Correct. You cannot impede the free flow of traffic.
but okay. So we did that and it's 250.
That's correct.
And so, is that an environmental citation?
That's traffic. It's a moving violation.
It is.
It's a it's a $250 fine. It's under traffic code.
That's Article
That's what I paid in.
31.
Yes,
Toby, is that right?
Article 31, Section 36.
And it's for what?
It's a $250 fine, and it's for impeding the free flow of traffic.
Okay, yeah. So it's not, it doesn't say block the box, but we're applying it to block the box.
That's
But we're
correct.
not enforcing that until the president's synchronization requirements are met.
Yeah, that's
Correct?
correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
So
So,
that should be mid-June.
Correct.
Councilwoman, can I
Thank
add?
you.
Councilwoman, can I add one thing on that, just for clarification?
Chairman, it's your committee. I'm finished with this round of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Caitlin, Toby, Mohammed, whomever this applies to. So there are two options. We can either cite at $90 plus a point, which is under the state code, or $250 under the city code. Can someone explain the justification behind using one or the other? I'm not suggesting one is right or one is wrong. I'm just curious as to how that decision was made.
Uh, Yeah. Frank, would you like to come up here and say why you determined wanting to use the state legislation?
Afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Frank Murphy, Baltimore City Transportation. There are limits on what our TOs can enforce. There are only certain types of infractions that they're able to write tickets for. Failing to follow a traffic control device is one of the few that they can write for. I'm not up to speed with the city infraction to see whether that falls within their power or not. We'll have to determine that. But I know that the state one is. We did this, you might recall, about 10 years ago. In fact, the signs that are up over the intersections are ones that we put up the last time we did an enforcement effort for this, and we used the state law.
So can we get, I think we need, so it sounds like there's two different potential penalties here, and DOT is opting to enforce one, which obviously it has to decide to do one versus the other. Can we get something in writing explaining what we have the authority to enforce? So I think what would be helpful is here's the specific piece of code and the reference to that code at the state level, and here's what the penalty is, and here's what it says. And here's the specific code and the penalty, and here's what it says for the city code. And DOT has decided that it is going to enforce these types of infractions in this manner as opposed, option A as opposed to option B. We just want to understand why it is that we understand what the problem is, right? But we have a couple different solutions here, and we're trying to figure out or better understand why you've selected one option over the other. Maybe there's a great reason why you can't use the city code, or maybe there's a great reason why it's better to use the state code. We just want to understand that so we can explain it to our constituents. Does that make sense? Can we get that in writing to the committee?
Yes. Okay.
Can we get that? And I think Councilwoman Clark's going to add some stuff to that. But go ahead, Councilwoman.
Just a question.
Okay, so on that request, can we get that in writing by no later than Friday, May 18th? That would give you 9 days. Does that seem reasonable?
I think that seems reasonable, yes.
Okay, so if you could get that to myself and to whoever's writing this down, Mr. Peters, who's staff to the committee, and to Kara Kuntz, who is the legislative director for Council President Young, and CC Mr. Banks from the mayor's office. So 4 people. That'll be an email to me, Matt, Kara, and a CC to Karan by no later than Friday, May 18th, and then I will disseminate that to the president and the council. Thank you. Councilwoman Clark.
Yes, I just want to ask this. This is about revenue. If we operate, 2 questions. One, who has the authority to write whichever of these tickets y'all DOT is going to choose? And secondly, who gets the money? In other words, if it's a state moving violation, isn't that the state? Okay, so that's why I'm asking the question. And if it's a city violation that DOs are allowed to actually write as well as police, then who gets that money? So those are my questions. Who gets the money, and is that a deciding point, or who can write the tickets, and is that a deciding point when DOT is making that decision?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, and members of the committee. I'm Toby Goodwin. I'm now the new Chief of Safety. The traffic enforcement officers, the TOs, are only authorized to write one moving violation, and that's the particular one from the city code in Article 31 about we call it do not block the box, but it says do not block any intersection as you're moving through the traffic. That's number one. We, as well as the city police, can write the same citation.
Okay.
We've also had our team, our entire staff, trained by city PD to ensure that they knew the proper way to cite the citation on the regular citation books. That information goes back to our parking and fines area after we put it in the system.
The city.
The city would get the revenue.
So it's a traffic ticket.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's the one that's the that's the $250 one, right?
Yeah, $250.
Whoa.
But the $90 citation it also goes into the district court as well. So the question becomes, the monies from the district court, do they come back? But when we write a parking citation, that goes directly to the city.
Right, and I'm not saying anybody's making any decisions based on that, but I'm trying to figure out what the decision-making points are that y'all are looking at, because we can't do both, I don't think. Or,
In terms of
well,
writing?
that's unequal, I mean, that would be unequal treatment of box blockers.
I think it's important, Madam Council Lady, to be concerned about the safety aspect of why
Right.
we're doing this. And as I observe the traffic on a daily basis, this happens all day long.
You don't have to tell me, I
every
almost
day.
missed this hearing.
So we want to make sure that we impose a type of safety mechanism in the city to make sure that pedestrians who are really hampered by this blocking the box situation in downtown, that they have the proper safe way to cross to and from the intersections throughout the downtown area.
So which do you think you might end up choosing?
We were going with the $90 fine and the 1 point. That's what our focus was.
Uh-huh.
And if we have to go back to reconsider that, we certainly will.
Because of the not having the point. Because of the impact of the point.
Correct.
Because that does have that really counts.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you have the thing without the point? The 90 without the
We
point?
would probably have to write another citation under that same. There are two separate ones that we can write. I believe one comes with a point and one does not.
And soon we'll know which one has been chosen.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the one that's going to be chosen is the one without the point. The mayor said no point, and if we have to put legislation in to stop it, we will.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Okay?
President.
The mayor said no point, I said no point. Already the citizens of Baltimore are redlined by our insurance companies. And giving it a point will further make more money for the insurance industry.
Mr.
And we don't
President, you
want
know that
that
we're
to
taking
happen.
all that in consideration of your
Okay.
comments.
All right, we don't want that to come back and the council will put a bill in to stop you all from doing it altogether.
Yes, sir,
'Cause
Mr. President.
if people will get points, that's what's going to happen.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. We're taking it under advisement.
90 plain.
I'm, can I say one more
Mr.
thing?
Chair, go ahead.
Councilman Bullock and I this afternoon had the pleasure of attending the State of the University for the University of Maryland, Baltimore today. I was parked on the 600 block of Pratt Street. It took me 15 minutes to get from the 600 block of Pratt Street in between MLK and Green Street, headed eastbound over to South Street, and it wasn't a traffic issue. So that's a really big problem, and I hope that we can get that figured out, especially in the downtown core. Not necessarily because I represent the Central Business District, but more importantly because that sprawls out and impacts every neighborhood in the city, especially with the volume of vehicles that are in the Central Business District each day. So I really do hope we can address that. Council President Young.
Thank
We'll
you,
look into
Mr.
that
Chair. Mr. Chair, I would ask that this resolution not be voted on, that we will recess the hearing so that we can call them back when we need to call them back, because I'm concerned about the point. The mayor said no point, I said no point, and they're talking about points.
Agreed 100%, Mr. President. A quick question on the, without having the budget books in front of me, do we know what has been budgeted in terms of those capital improvements on the one page that you had, Mohammed? I know you said it's $17 million a year for 6 years, and then we're spending about, I think you said $4.5 to $5 million a year.
That's right.
Do we know what's in the budget book this year for those improvements?
For FY19, I don't have that number, but I think it's around that number,
Okay.
about 5 million.
Could we, while we're certainly capable of looking it up in the budget book, again, without having that in front of me, I don't know if that's a specific line item in there or if that's a portion of an existing line item. So would you be kind enough in your response that you send on by no later than Friday the 18th to include the specific service number that is under and the specific line item, just so that we understand, hey, it's 4.7 million of this $16 million line item, or whatever the case
Sure.
may be. Or maybe it's its own standalone sub-item under a service area. But if you could provide that to the committee as well.
We will.
Mr. President, colleagues, are there any other questions? Okay, we look forward to receiving that response, but again, by no later than call of business Friday, May 18th, in writing, email to myself, Mr. Peters, Ms. Kunst, and a CC to Mr. Banks from the mayor's office. We will go into recess, and we will reconvene at a later date once we have that information, and go from there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.